Hello.
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 Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is George El-Hage. I'm a friend of
Yes.
Bob. And
Yes, George.
how
Just
are
a
you?
minute. I'll put Bob on, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Hold on. Gentleman is calling you. George. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mahdi.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you?
I am fine, sir. My name is George El-Hage. I'm a friend of Bob, and we have arranged to have an interview with you, if possible, about your dad.
Okay. That sounds like an entertaining afternoon.
Well, we hope that we can get some information, and I really would like to thank you very much. I'm grateful for this interview. It's a great honor to talk to you, and we consider it as a service not only for Arabic literature at large, but for Lebanese literature and scholarship at home and in diaspora. Given also the greatness of Eliya Abu Madi and the fact that you are the only great survivor, so to speak, of that generation who can shed some light on things that are still hidden. So,
I understand you're associated with, or you did your other documentary activities at the University of Baltimore.
no, I did not go to University of Baltimore. I am a retired professor and dean of Arabic and comparative literature, and I was the director and the coordinator of the Arabic language program at Columbia University in New York City
Wow.
for 7 years, and then I came to California for the Defense Language Institute, where I was the dean of the Arabic school.
And what took you so long to come call?
Well, I have been doing a lot of work on Arabic literature in general, and particularly Lebanese literature, not only at home but in diaspora as well. So I did a lot of work. I have a number of books. As a matter of fact, on Amazon, I have 61 books, many of them on Khalil Gibran and Mikhail Naimi and Amin al-Rihani and many other of the, Al-Rabita al-Qarami, the Pen Bond Association.
Yes.
So, and I have done some.
But let me interrupt you a minute. Why is it? I applaud your effort. At the same time, I'm wondering why it's taken you long if you were attempting to do something academically.
You mean on Eliya Abu Madi?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear something on that if it's available, but it's not a necessity.
Yes, I have done work on Eliya Abu Madi as well, but there is a lot of stuff online, as you can imagine, and on the internet and in some books, but nobody has done a study like this in depth with you personally. I mean, we know there is a lot of common knowledge information that is available, and we know what Naimi wrote about Eliya Abu Madi, and I'm going to give you a synopsis if you're not familiar with what Naimi said. Basic.
No, I'm enjoying this. It's a pleasure for me as well as for you. It's finding the right people to deal with, to talk to. It's no easy chore.
Right, and a work on on Lebanese literature in diaspora, basically, I've done a lot of research on that, and I uncovered some information about an unknown, until I published it, an unknown newspaper that was contemporary to As-Samir of Abu Madi. It's called Al-Risala by somebody called Masoud. I would.
Okay. I know the names. I'm familiar with the names, but I am not an authority on the subject and people. I know when it's time to approach someone and pursue it, on that basis, because it's a vast, although it doesn't appear to be, it's a vast amount of literature there.
Right, there is a lot.
People like yourself don't always have access.
You're right. We don't. And
I'm enthralled or entertained, whatever the correct word is, just at the idea of being able to uncover more information on my dad.
yes, we'd love to do that.
It's a thrill for me as well as for you.
Absolutely. Well, it is a gift for literature at large, for the research and the scholarship, and that's what we're after, the accuracy of the information. So I think to put you, Mr. Robert Mahdi, in your proper historical context, so to speak, you were born in 1933.
Correct.
And this was 2 years after the death of Khalil Gibran, who died in 1931. And
that's correct.
right, and 1 year after Naimi left New York to Lebanon in 1932. And also the 1932 was the dissolving of the Penn Bond Association formally, which Eliya Abu Madi was a founding member of.
Now, what was the Rabta you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, continue.
You prefer if I call it Al-Rabita? You're familiar with that?
It's at your pleasure, whatever.
Thank you, sir. And you were born 4 years after your father established As-Samir in 1929.
Correct. He established himself that year. He got taken in, as they say. He wasn't always a sharp individual when it comes to gambling, and in a sense, he gambled when he won by associating himself with a group of people that prospered and made this, impressed this country what it is today in many respects.
You mean in business adventure?
What do you mean by business adventure?
You mean the people who prospered later on? Was that in business or in the media, in literature, in the newspapers? Okay.
No, it'll come.
It'll come, yeah. So anyway, in 1929, when he established it, and you were born, you were 4 years old, he was in the midst of launching the As-Samir, and you were 24 years old when your father died in 1957, so you should have a lot of memory about the man who was Eliya Abu Madi, we would think.
As a matter of fact, I do.
Yeah, well, good. That's why we're graciously accepting. You're graciously giving us this interview.
It's taken a lot of years.
I know.
For people to know that there's someone else that contributed in such a way that you couldn't deny it.
No, you can't. You cannot. I mean, the impact of Al-Rabita in general and Eliya Abu Madi in particular on the advancement of Arabic literature is tremendous, and you can never give the man enough credit for what he did. And that's what we're trying to establish here, or try to reinforce. Um, you obviously come from an educated family, especially also on your mother's side, Dorothy, right?
Yes,
So
correct.
my first question would be interesting from a man who was into literature, like your father was saying. How did you branch out into nuclear physics and engineering and MIT and University of Maryland and the Apollo project and whatnot? From literature to that.
Well, I don't know who was some from literature to that. I suspect that that may have been part of it, but it certainly was an opportunity that was taken, and a lot of young men were doing it at that time as well. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to be able to participate in that. It's what they say is a hell of a ride, and we would manage to participate in it.
And was Eliya? I mean, we know Eliya was in general not a very wealthy man. So how did he finance MIT at the time and the University of Maryland and whatnot?
I'll tell you how they financed it. He worked his butt off. Number one, he struggled, and my mother struggled as well along with him. It was a team. I can't give you point by point, but I can tell you this, that he didn't hedge one moment. I remember the time when I told my dad, I picked out the school I want to go to, and I would like it if you can support it. Because in those days, there was no, you got to, you put a dollar down or $100 down or whatever it is, and you got to, you got some support. That doesn't happen the way it did years ago. So
Right.
I was fortunate enough to be able to take that. I said I would like to go, and he never denied me,
Wonderful.
that opportunity.
Okay, and I have to mention to you that with your permission, I'd like to record this interview so for accuracy. So when I put it down in the book, I don't miss things that you said or misquote you. Is that okay with you?
That's fine. Yes, if you don't mind, I would like a copy of that.
Of course. I will send you a copy and for you to verify it before I publish it in a book. So you give me your blessing on the information that is
You
in
have
it.
my blessing because you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't need any further blessing on that.
Thank
So I
you.
consider it an honor that you continued the string of information that I keep uncovering, and that's for me it's difficulty because of the language barrier.
Yeah,
But
of course. I
somehow
know.
we manage. You'd be surprised how many issues and subjects and people are uncovered over time.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of being there, and I can tell you, who the people are that I've met. When I say I met them strictly socially or under the umbrella of my mother and father or something of that sort.
Yes. I mean, we know that they used to come to your house. I mean, we're talking Gibran and Aimi and others used to come to your dad's house and get a drink and try to uh, plan on how to revive the Arabic language that was really dying at the time and was fossilized and built on imitation and other things. So
It's incredible how it's manifested it was back in the early 30s and now.
Oh, yeah.
There's a very big difference. There's a demand for it. That's not seen every day, or not, it's not seen by others, like the language itself, the people themselves, getting the information firsthand.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's a resurrection for that.
It is absolutely a resurrection, yes. And you never spoke Arabic, like learned Arabic enough to speak it and understand it.
Yeah, just
Okay. What about your brothers? You had two brothers, right?
my two brothers are deceased.
Are both deceased?
The older oldest brother, passed away 2 years now. Two and a half years.
And
the other one died earlier. And I'm the last remaining.
you're the last of the Mohicans. We know that. Yes.
I felt, and I had a lot of so-called American friends who took an interest in the subject and what was happening over a period of time, and I had the pleasure of working with them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not new, but it's not old either.
Right. Okay. Your father was always busy with the press, as we know, especially when he moved to Brooklyn. He was there pretty much most of the day and of the night, and he would wake up, as you said in an interview before, and write on any scrap of paper that is available around him and whatnot. So my question to you is, what memories would you have about this father who was a journalist, a poet, a publisher, and his role as a father? Was he available at home enough, or was he always gone and busy and preoccupied from the family?
It's a good question. People wonder, but you know what I guess bothers me, and it's not my father or anyone in particular, but you read about the people, the literati, the people who are big names in where they're located and so on, but you never get into the family.
Right.
The family is gone.
Absolutely.
They never introduce. Not that they owe anybody anything, but it seems to me that this is a problem in general, not just with Arabic. That's how I feel.
Right.
It's the boat, and in certain areas where the literature is weak, and it could be much enhanced much more than it is now. Anyway, you're running the show.
That's all right. No, I'd like to listen to you. Just say whatever comes to your mind. That's the whole idea. So, do you have any recollections of stories or anecdotes that your father might have mentioned about any of the members of Al-Rabita, Gibran, Naimi, Rihani, Ayyub, etc.?
By the time I was of age, let's say, by the time I was 10 or 11 years old,
They were gone. They were dispersed.
They were almost all gone.
Yeah.
Not quite. They were short a little bit, but they were dying one at a time, and there was it's a tragedy in a sense. It's like your whole family.
Right.
And they didn't have a chance to express that in the way it should have been. That's my feeling, and I get that information from people I've met since. And it's a pleasure for me to open the doors and open the pages and say, this is what happened, this is how it happened, no, that's not the right way. This is the right way.
Exactly. That's what we
Yeah.
need to correct some information. When Eliya came to America, he went straight to Cincinnati in 1912, where your uncle Murad was there, right?
Correct.
So what business was Murad in? What did he do? Because he stayed with him 4 years in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Manoj was a low-key man, individual, who was a writer as well.
Ah,
But he was also, and my father was the same way. They were practitioners. Um, and they knew that there was something they had to support a family. You couldn't just throw yourself in any direction and not, not have, I guess, the opportunity to express it all the way.
right.
It's not clear, and as we go, if I make a mistake here, I know you'll be kind, as they say.
Absolutely. Okay. Then in 1916, Eliya Abu Madi moved to New York City, and shortly after that,
I'm sorry. Say
go,
that again.
in,
You know that what?
in 1916,
Yeah.
Eliya Abu Madi moved to New York City, and there he met Najib Diab,
Yes.
who was the publisher of Mir'at al-Gharb, the Mirror of the West newspaper.
Yes. Yes.
And
And then he worked for.
go ahead.
Fill in the missing word.
Yes, and he married his daughter Dorothy.
That's correct.
So, what memories do you have of your grandfather?
Actually, I had no letters that I'm aware of from my grandfather, and I sort of sorry and sad about that because we never had a chance to express ourselves to one another, not necessarily to the outside world, but just with one another.
With Najib Diab, you mean?
I was 3 years old only when he passed away.
Oh,
And so in all respects, he didn't enter my life until later.
I see. You hardly knew him,
I
yeah.
know of stories. I know of um, like you would know of people who you learned about later on, but you never engaged the individual face to face. That's a loss for me.
It's a big loss, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you about the town Al-Mhaythi, where Eliya Abu Madi came from in Lebanon, in Mount Lebanon. Do you have, I mean, is the family, your family, the Eliya Abu Madi family in the States here, do you have a presence there, like your grandfather's house on his side, on Eliya Abu Madi's side, his father's house, anything in the town?
Well, let me tell you, you make the decision, all right?
Sure.
Here's the story. Around about, let's see, 1956
Uh-huh.
or so, thereabouts, friends of mine decided that we should go to Syria and Lebanon and discover our roots, all right? We're doing this casually. It was without thought.
Okay.
And we decided we were going to go and try to meet some of the people that we might have met as a full family. And we went. We met
Who went with you?
People who he had never grown up with, that never met before, and it was a pleasure. It was a thrill, like nothing you could have experienced.
Uh-huh.
So
Who went with you to Lebanon?
there were three other gentlemen who decided they would go because they're from Lebanon or Syria, they want to participate.
Right.
Firsthand.
Was your dad still alive?
No, my dad.
He died in 1957.
Yes. So you hit on the right numbers here. He passed away at 57, and he didn't live to.
So you went after that?
I went. Yeah, it was about a year. I have the exact numbers. I'm forgetting some of them now.
That's all right.
But it was about 2 or 3 years later.
Uh-huh.
Tops.
And in 1902, Eliya Abu Madi and his family migrated to Alexandria, Egypt.
Repeat that again, please.
In 1902, Eliya Abu Madi and his family from Lebanon migrated to Egypt, where they went to Alexandria.
Okay. When you say, now built into that statement, I believe, are errors.
Keith.
The errors being, my father was about, in 1902, he was about 12 years old.
Yes. Yeah. With his father and mother, we think, he went to Egypt. Because they were running from the poverty and the oppression of the Ottoman Empire in Lebanon.
Correct.
So
that gets a little muffled, but there was that kind of activity going on in Lebanon, and they were becoming more aggressive.
Right. So what I'm after is they had a house in Mhaiti. So what happened to their house there?
That house is still there.
It's still there.
Still there. I have a picture of it. That when I went to Lebanon, they asked me did I have any special interest? The government now, the Lebanese government.
Right.
And I said to them, there are 2 or 3 things I would like, if you don't mind. And I began to tell them the list. They took me to the house where my father had lived in Haiti. They introduced me to members of the government and anointed me.
Yes, I mean, well deserved, yes.
Where gave me tickets to go to see Beirut.
In Baalbek, maybe.
Yeah, in Baalbek. Beautiful time at the festival itself.
Well, the Lebanese government eventually honored Abu Madi before his death with.
That is correct.
Yes.
I have pictures of my father in New York at a celebration, I guess you call it, in which they honored him.
That's right.
They had more people there at the dais than they did in the.
For sure.
Well, everywhere else.
From what you remember, what happened to the house after that, to his house in Lebanon?
It's not clear. It's still not clear. I really don't know. I was so happy to have rediscovered this house. Nobody was living in it, by the way, at the time. And but I saw it. And situation where I was able to meet or learn about, call them first and second.
You know, right, Mr. Mahdi, let me, I will make a suggestion because Eliya Abu Madi is not any less than his colleagues in Al-Rabita, namely Gibran and Naimi and Rihani, who were able, through some help from themselves, from the family, from other contributors, to turn their houses in Lebanon into museums that housed their library and their works. You know, in Eliya Abu, Amin al-Rihani, they turned his house in Fraiki, which is next to Al-Mhaithi, into a museum. So they did with Gibran, so they did with Naimi in Baskinta. There were no plans that you know of turning Eliya Abu Madi's house into a museum.
I didn't catch what your question was exactly.
My question is, are there or were there at one point a plan to turn Eliya Abu Madi's house in Lebanon into a museum that houses his library, his books, his works?
The short order of the heresy of this is, I know of none.
Right.
On the other hand, there have been a number of celebrations, if you will. Every once in a while, somebody pops up and says, "There's a hotly going on in Lebanon. They're going to celebrate your father's birthday. Can you come?" And well, if you listed all the people that wanted to come and where they want to go, you wouldn't have time for anything except for that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So they were very, very good to me.
I'm sure.
I could always say that the year that I went to Lebanon, it was in 1958, I think it was. They descended on me.
Yes.
and said, "We want to have a hot tree for you." Now this was in Lebanon. They're talking to me. They wanted to celebrate my father's whatever, everything.
Which he deserves, yes. Was this your only visit to Lebanon?
No.
Ah.
I started to make it somewhat of a habit, not as much as I would like to, but it's certainly a lot more than it has generated up until now.
Okay, let me ask you, from what you recall, talking to your father or being around him and stuff, his relationship and his opinion, let's say, of the clergy and the church, etc., in general, where would he stand on that? He was close to the bishop, we know that, in Brooklyn.
I know that, and I know it well. The bishop is my godfather. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't, but now I know. Yes. Not too many people know that. That's good new information. Yeah.
There was his brother's son was also he was a resident. I guess he was God's son. That's what I was looking for. He was God's son for both of us.
Was Eliya a churchgoer?
My dad, yeah, he probably did more in the early years than he did later.
Mm.
I know he participated in many activities on the church level, and as a chairman of the committees and chairman of the whatever it is.
Right, he was involved in the community, yes.
Yeah, as the family grew, of course, there was problems in the family, health problems.
Mm.
And it was unfortunate for those who were living and participating at the time. His sister had died early, and so on. I mean, it wasn't a happy time. Yet they went on.
Right, right.
They went on, and they managed to eliminate anybody that couldn't contribute in a way.
Right. What happened to his library, his books, his manuscripts? Where are they?
I sit on them every day.
Uh-huh.
I have them in my possession. The problem is I don't want them in my possession. And I want them where they rightly belong in some library. But it's got to be genuine. It can't be this nonsense I get every once in a while that tell you, send me everything and we'll let you know all about it.
Right. So you're kind of looking for a library to house his manuscripts and his books.
Yeah, I mean, if you're sincere, you being people in general, if you're sincere about these things, this should have taken off long ago.
Absolutely.
Okay, it hasn't. Then you wonder why, and then it's all of a sudden there's an activity going on, about my father, and you get the idea that, well, it looks like maybe we're on our way. We could salvage all the library and other pieces of paraphernalia and reminiscence of my father. It needs someone to run it properly, and there's no one everybody's willing to participate in a very small way. It doesn't work.
Well, you probably need a major university to.
Which one?
I don't know. I'm saying you might need a major university that would take this load off your hands and catalog it and make a section for Eliya Abu Madi in their library. That's what would be the best, I think.
Well, who's leading the charge on this?
I don't know if anybody at this point, but I'm saying maybe this is something we should be talking about.
I sit here and I'm delighted, is the right word here. I'm delighted to be able to have this discussion with you.
Well, thank you. Well,
this is not my role.
No, it is not. I know what you mean.
My role is to facilitate the things that you talk about.
Yeah, I mean, somebody should be coming after you to do that, not you going after anybody.
Well, not just me. The real heavy hitters are the ones who have since gone. Bishop Bashir, people like this.
Who was that?
Bashir.
Bashir. Are you talking about Antonius Bashir?
Yes.
The bishop?
Yes.
Oh. How do you know him?
He's my godfather.
Antonius Bashir?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, you didn't say that. We know the bishop, but we never knew his name. Which bishop?
No, dude. There's a lot of people I know.
Well, that's a big discovery here. Antonius Bashir. My God, he's a huge man, Eda.
Let me also let you know that he lived next door to me.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah. He was our next door neighbor.
And he was a good friend of your father.
Yes, absolutely. They were like brothers.
Right, and he was a good friend of Gibran, as you know.
Yes, I know that. I know that.
And he translated the Prophet into Arabic.
He translated the who?
Gibran's book, The Prophet,
Yes.
he translated it into Arabic, and among other books of Gibran. That's right.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
it's
you
all out
know,
there. It's an unbelievable amount of information, and but it takes a man. It takes someone who's interested in this, not
right.
just talks about it.
Do you?
Talking alone will not do it.
No, you're right. Do you think from what you know that there are some manuscripts in your possession that have not been published?
Yes, I know for a fact there are some scripts, and I don't know all of who they are, but I know because of how my father bookkeep, if you will. he wasn't careful. He was lovable, but he was not careful.
Right.
You know, he needed someone to keep him in order, but he was a loving man. He loved to be among his people, and he would.
Yeah.
I guess he's someone who feels he's compelled to.
You know, have it occurred to you through the connections, since we talked about Antonius Bashir, he is the man who was behind establishing the University of Balamand in Lebanon. Are you familiar with that? The, it's a major university for the Greek Orthodox, like your dad, in northern Lebanon.
No, I mean I know of the construction and the development of all of that that took place or has taken place.
What I'm saying is, would that be of any interest to you if I made some effort to connect and they had interest in acquiring the library?
Let me put it to you this way, and I'm going to be very candid.
Please.
I feel very strongly about my father, and I can't read, I can't write, but I can speak.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find is this is the common activity. There are people in love with my father and in love with this time frame and love to hear his speeches or his poems. But there's no one to go beyond that point. And unless you do take charge, it will die. They'll go beyond what you can do or what I can do alone. Someone has to be able to promote it and push it forward. And unless that person comes forward and unless he gets support as well, it's not a one-man band. Unless he gets it in a timely way, they'll disappear.
I know. I have talked to the Archbishop in the Nuriyi Monastery near Balamand, and he expressed a very strong interest in acquiring the library and making a whole section of it for Eliya Abu Madi.
If you'll pardon me for saying this, but you know, every time somebody talks to them, it sounds like you know what they're doing or wants to know what they're doing.
Okay. Well, let me pursue it a little bit.
They don't go beyond that.
I understand.
They don't have a plan for it. They think this is automatic. It's not. It never will be.
No, it's not. It takes a lot of work. You're absolutely right. Words alone don't cut it. We'll see. Let me see what I can do. Let me ask you two more questions. I don't want you to get too tired. I'm really grateful for your time.
Listen, this is a pleasure for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome to call me at any time to talk about it. I love it because I have no other way of doing it. I can't read it and I can't write it.
Okay, I have to, thank you. Two more questions for you. One is, you had mentioned in a previous interview that one of your father's favorite poems to you is Ibtasim, smile.
So you know what? Somehow I missed something you said.
That's all right. I'll say it again.
Please repeat it.
Yes. In a previous interview, you had mentioned that one of your father's favorite poems to you is called Ibtasim, smile.
Smile, okay.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that you think that your father wrote this poem for your mother.
Yes, correct.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because that's new information.
Repeat your last comment.
I said, can you please elaborate on that? Because this is new information. Nobody knows that he might have written that poem for Dorothy.
First of all, I know of, I think, the two people who have taken an interest in that particular poem.
Uh-huh.
One is a musician in Lebanon, and where he got it, I don't know. I was able to find out that he somehow he got the information. Yeah, it was a rhythm poem, and somehow he got the poem, a copy of the poem, and he took his group, and they went to the what was the in the mountains where they have the
Baalbek?
Baalbek, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if I can find it, I will be happy to let you have a copy.
No, we know that major Arab singers like Farid Abdul Halim Hafiz and Abdul Wahab and Fairuz have sung poems by Eliya Abu Madi. We know that.
Yes, I do.
But
I have copies of that.
but my question to you was, you think that your father wrote this poem Ibtasim to Dorothy, you said.
Yes, usually if you knew him, you would be able to see some of this on your own. It's one of these things where probably they've heard my father say something, or somebody requested a copy of something like that, and then it gets put aside.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, I'm with you. Okay. Okay. Are you familiar with, for example, what Mikhail Naimi wrote about your dad, talking about his personality and whatnot?
I think I can safely say I don't know. I know the least amount under that umbrella.
Okay, I would like to verify some of this information with you, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, but you gotta understand this.
Okay.
I don't read.
That's all right.
Get somebody else to be my reader.
I will read to you some of what Naimi said, and you can stop me and correct the information that I read to you.
Yeah, I love the way you approach it, and I say this with love.
All right.
You would love to have this, be able to do knew what we're talking about. And the problem is it gets bogged down. And every time it gets bogged down in a different point. Either it's, yeah, I don't understand Arabic, or I don't know how to read Arabic.
No, I translated this.
I need a sight person.
Okay, Mr. Mahdi, I translated Naimi's book. Naimi wrote a book called Sab'un, 70, when he was 70 years old. And it's about his biography, autobiography.
Yes.
In that book, which I translated into English and published, he has a section on Eliya Abu Madi. Are you with me?
Yes, I am with you.
So he said Eliya Abu Madi was born in Mahdi in Lebanon. We know that. He was short, small in stature, with minimal hair, but large eyes and wide forehead. And I believe this is a true description. Because we also know from the newspaper boy Hank Murad, who talked about your dad, he said something similar to that. But Naimi said, Eliya Abu Madi's attire displayed a villager's simplicity that lacked decorum and taste. Is that your recollection? The way he dressed.
I don't think so, but I can tell you this. You said something that rang a bell just now. Henry Miran.
Yes.
You know who he is.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, I know.
where does he live? Is he still living in New York? And where?
He's in New York somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, you don't know where.
Not exactly, no.
Well, Henry is a very close friend of mine.
Okay.
Very close friend. We grew up as buddies and friends. And he worked for my father.
Yes.
And his sister worked for my father. And they each had stories to tell. And they're all amusing. They're all stories about people, happy people.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Henry he's still alive, and he still can speak and engage a little bit in conversation. But if you're interested in talking to someone like that, he has that information. But he's like me. Neither one of us knows anything in Arabic.
Right.
We know,
That's all right. That's all right. We can translate that. مش مشكلة.
Yeah, we know enough to be able to talk this subject because we live this subject. And you're not going to get any closer than that.
True. You lived it every day, yes. Now, Naimi says that Eliya Abu Madi was unstable in his relationships and friendships.
Repeat that front end again.
He was unstable in his relationships and friendships, depending on the situation. His nature was a blend of both the dove and the scorpion.
You know what? I would make it easier. It doesn't sound like something familiar.
Exactly.
But I could put it up against anything that I have in English. And I have quite a few, even though I don't, read it all on everything. If a copy of that in English, have you one in English?
A copy of what?
Do you have a copy of anything in English like we're talking?
Yeah, I'm having it in front of me.
interesting and desirable if we had an opportunity, we could go over it together, if you will.
Okay, I will arrange to send you the book and to your address. I'll ask Bob to give me your address and we'll send you the book so you can read it in English.
Whatever, I don't have anything that doesn't deserves, no less than any of these people, these men and women who participated in the resurrection and the activities making them come back. And having the opportunity to ride it all the way in and continue it afterwards.
Right.
It's something you can't imagine what a feeling it is. And
how would you describe Eliya Abu Madi's personality?
well,
I mean, that's a wide question, probably. Yeah.
no, it's not. The problem is where to begin.
Right. Well, anything that comes to your mind as a person, what was he like, Eliya Abu Madi? As somebody you knew him so closely.
This is sense of humor.
Uh-huh.
Sense of humor. He can make anyone enjoy him, love him. It was always a pleasure to be around him. I watched him. I didn't participate like a regular adult, only because I was so much younger than some of his peers. And so learning about this information more and more is exciting for me.
Absolutely. Have you ever visited his printing press where he published As-Samir?
Say it again. Have I ever?
Visit his offices at the As-Samir.
Yes.
Did you visit him there at all?
Who?
Did you?
I'm not catching one or two words there. You asked me, have I ever
Visited your father in his office?
Have I ever solicited my father in his office?
Yes.
Absolutely, I did. I used to go in there, and I loved walking through the building there where the machine, the presses. And I made friends. I was a kid.
Right. You were.
But I was walking through the shop where they run the linotype and the desk where they do write all
The editorials.
To have what?
Where they write the editorials and the
editorial, correct.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't there every single day, and I had
Sure.
no interest in it. Would you believe it?
No, I understand. Yeah.
I was.
Did Eliya Abu Madi have a temper?
Did he have a temper?
Yeah. I mean, was he loud? Was he?
We all.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah, but I mean.
The people I've been around all seem to have one issue, and that is getting the job done.
You talked with Eliya Abu Madi in English, right? Not in Arabic. The way you communicated with your father. Did you communicate with him? Did you speak with him in English or in Arabic?
I spoke to him in both, and my mother in both too. The funny part is my father would, although he spoke fluently, all right, but he would respond to me in Arabic. And my mother was born in she spoke English, and that was her primary language. Primary.
What if I ask you to tell me, for example, in your judgment as an educated person, what was the level of English that Eliya Abu Madi could communicate with? Was it a high level of English or elementary level of English? Because he didn't study English formally, we know that.
Yeah, we do know that. You know, it's hard to say.
Okay,
If you don't know the language today, to tell others about the language. How can I do that?
no. Okay,
In fairness to the person who wrote the poem, or unless I have someone translating for me, I can't.
not you. I'm saying, if I ask you, as you an educated person in English, to tell me the level of English, of fluency that he had in English, would you say he was fluent or he was not fluent in English?
No, he was fluent in English. He was fluent in English. No question about it. And he's an amazing guy. And I'm glad I participated in English when I was in his environment. Because otherwise I would have missed it completely.
Right. The reason I ask you this question is that Naimi says that Eliya Abu Madi, like most of the Arabita members, did not know enough English to read books on literature. But he could read an article in the newspaper and make sense of it. So that put him at a lower level in English. That's what I'm trying to establish, in your opinion.
Yeah. You know, I could comment on it, but I'm not the right person. If I comment on it, I comment on it, give you a role as to what little English, what little Arabic I understand. It helps me to understand him better as well. And for me, it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't end because the subject doesn't end. I'll never be someone who can recite his poetry.
No, of course not. But how about Eliya Abu Madi himself? Could he have read, for example, a book in English, a book of literature in English, and understand it?
Absolutely. And I could document that as well. At some point, I'd be happy to do that. And but that'll come if they ever decide to do something constructive with the books and literature that I have now.
Like if he takes, for example, a book of, say, you're familiar with Walt Whitman, with Emerson.
Walt Whitman was a big writer, perhaps.
Yeah. So would he be able to read Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass?
Absolutely. And I'll give you, I don't have them at my fingertips, but at another time, I'll make your eyeballs twirl with some of the readings that he had.
So he had books of Walt Whitman, for example, and Emerson and Thoreau.
He had, and I have, books in Walt Whitman, and other books that he read. He read everything. He read the comic books.
Okay. So in his library, there are books of English literature that he personally read.
Yes, absolutely, without equivocation.
All right.
Uh, yes.
So you wouldn't say that his knowledge of English was elementary, so to speak.
That is not never of English would be what?
That his knowledge of English was at a higher level, not an elementary level.
No, it was at a high level. It was at a high level. With a little accent on it.
Sure, we all have accents. Yeah. All right. All right.
But no, it was people like to congregate around him. I watched him many, many times as they grew older. Because if I was the same age, I'm sorry, as my father, it would be a whole different ballgame.
Right, of course.
Totally different game. But I had something different. He operated like that I was a baby physically. You know, that I was born and everything. And I had the advantage of doing all the collecting of, compliments.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Was he sick in the end when he died?
No, he had a heart condition, and at the year that he died, he suffered a second heart attack, and he passed. He was a fighter all the way.
Right. You were 24 years. He was a heavy smoker. We know that too.
Yes.
Okay. Well, do you want to leave me with any anecdote, any story from your dad?
First of all, I'm not leaving you, so you don't have to worry that we don't have a chance to talk again. Number one. Number two, you can pick your subject, and we can talk about any subject you want, literally. So again, it's not something you worry about. If you want something that you're interested in, you don't have, I'd be happy to search with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to visit you and look at his library you are in Long Island, right? Are you in Long Island? Yeah. Maybe someday I'll make the trip back east and.
I'll take you to show you the two houses. I saw them just last week. They're occupied by different people now, but he occupied one house, and right next door was the Archbishop. And my father and Bashir were the greatest of friends.
That was amazing. That was amazing, yeah.
The bond that was incredible. You could go and talk to the man. I could. I don't know how others treated him, but I could go next door and he would sit me down and we would exchange information and subjects. It was just a different world.
That's a different world. Yes, you're right. You're right.
And he was a different man. He was, more relaxed.
Yeah.
And he also got what was the word? We didn't do things that we should have, or vice versa.
Right.
He had this beautiful Cadillac car that sat in the driveway all the time, and he never really used it because he was so busy traveling or
working. Yeah, that's right.
But,
okay.
We were kids, and we wanted to play as kids, and
I want to ask you a final question, Mr. Madi. I suspect that your dad, probably like Gibran, for example, and Naimi, believed in the continuity of life and in reincarnation. Do you have a comment on that? Do you know anything about that in his belief?
Do I have anything on it? I don't have anything that I'm aware of. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you have to realize, although it's not truism in the absolute sense, but you have to realize that you're dealing with someone who has to be able to deal with English and Arabic.
Right.
All right. In my father's case, we're lucky in a sense because if he only spoke Arabic, I would never have made it through the family. So that's one issue.
Right.
You asked something about children. Yeah, I know what you did. That's a hard one for me.
It is.
I
It
have
is.
to think about it.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's something I'll say for the future, knowing that you have an interest and I have an interest, and somewhere we're going to meet again here
Yes.
and exchange more information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an ongoing project, and I'm very grateful for your time, your patience, and your graciousness for granting this interview. And it is for really prosperity, for the scholarship world more than for me personally. So God bless you, and I hope sometime we can arrange for another interview with you.
I will. I have a number of questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
You live where? In Maryland or Virginia?
No.
Or,
Right now I am in California.
okay. Is that are you living there?
Yes.
Working?
Yes, I live now in California on the West Coast.
Okay. You have no intention, any immediate intention of returning to the West Coast, East Coast?
Not in the immediate future, but I have connections there, so we might go for a visit or so. And if we do, we will talk to you.
Know how easy it is to
Yes.
knock on your door and say, I'm coming in for coffee.
Oh, I'd love that. I wish, believe me. I really wish we can do that. But I will have to make a trip to the East Coast and spend some time with you and look at the library. But in the meantime, we could arrange, if you don't mind, for another interview to have more discussion.
I don't mind at all.
Okay.
You're genuine and you enjoy the subject and want to, learn more about it.
Absolutely.
Contribute something. I'm 100% for that.
Thank you very much, and God bless you. And we'll talk soon. And
Okay.
thank you again, and say hi to your wife, and I will talk to Bob after this. Thank you very much, Mr. Madi.
Okay, thank you.
God bless you. Bye.
Bye-bye.